Welcome to Ladies Talking Love, Season 3, Episode 24, Ideas for Initiating Sex. It's Ladies Talking Love, a community of women uncovering more joy and fulfillment in sex, as we learn from experts and amazing women like you. Together, let's create a world where women's sexuality is celebrated and understood, beginning with our own. I'm your host, Ariel Finlinson. Let's talk love. I recently got to do an event with my good friend, Carly Palmer-Webb. She is a fantastic sex educator, and I love getting to work with her and also learn from her. And you guys, there was more than one of these moments, but there was a specific moment where she blew my mind. In the live Q&A after the event, someone asked the question, what are some ideas for initiating sex? And I was waiting for the response of, some of the ones I've told you about if you've been around here for a while. Get in lingerie and hop in bed before your husband, or just do something spontaneous. And you know what she said? It kind of blew my mind a little bit, but also I was like, that is so me. I'm so glad she said that because this is what I've been thinking forever. I just haven't been verbalizing it. But she talked about that her favorite way to initiate sex or to have her husband initiate sex, wait for it, are you ready? To use their words. And if you are a parent, you have probably said this about 3 million times to your kids. This happens all the time, right? They're throwing a fit, or they're just pointing to something, or, grabbing something. It's like, all right, use your words. Let me know what you need. Let me know what you're feeling. Please use your words to ask for something. And it blew my mind, you guys. One of the best ways to initiate sex is to use your words, especially if you or your spouse is more of a responsive type desire. It's going to take a little bit more time for you to move into the mood. You might need to think about it for a moment instead of getting jumped and being like, oh, I guess my spouse wants sex. What do I think? I don't have time because if I wait a millisecond longer, they're going to feel like I'm rejecting them and it'll just be easier to go through it. Do you hear me? Like, have you felt this go through your mind before? But asking with our words and giving our spouse time to respond and to think can be so beautiful, especially if you're someone with responsive desire or if your spouse is someone with responsive desire. And Carly gave a fantastic way to do this. And I just think it's so good. But she talked about this time when her husband initiated and he said something like, I would love to have sex with you, but if you're not up for it right now, how else can we connect? Or another way, are you open to having sex today? And giving your spouse time to think about an answer and think, oh, am I open for it? And if the answer is yes, then you can decide, well, I'm open to it, but I'm not there yet. So what do I need? And what do I need to share with my spouse to help me move into the mood? For me, this often looks like I need to have some connection. If you're feeling disconnected, maybe you've kind of felt alone in the care of housework and childcare that day, and your spouse initiates sex, it can feel like you're being used because without that foundation of being supported, of being seen, of not being the only one taking care of all the household things, and your spouse comes and just wants sex, it can feel like you're being used. But with this approach of asking if you're open to sex, I think it can be so powerful. First is to recognize that often when our partner is reaching out for sex in a healthy relationship, it's often because they want deeper connection. Yes, sex feels great. It can be so fun. It can be empowering. There are so many beautiful things. And maybe sometimes that is why your spouse is reaching out. But I think the deeper meaning often, even though on the surface it may seem like that, I think often it's because that is a comfortable way for them to reach out and say, hey, I want to be closer to you. I want more connection, or to say, hey, I'm feeling disconnected and this is a way I want to connect with you. And so then it's important for you to recognize what you need in order to be open to connecting sexually. Maybe for them, moving right to sex to connect is great. But for you, if you haven't felt supported in the housework, in the childcare, in having time for yourself, if you haven't felt seen and listened to or recognizing your emotions, you might need more than just moving into the bedroom. And so verbalizing that and recognizing, okay, my spouse is reaching out for connection. First of all, am I open to sexual connection? If not, let them know a different way that you would be open to connect. That could be a lot of the things you would do to move into the mood if you were open for sex, but without thinking this is going to lead to sex, and be like, I'm actually not open to sex right now. Today, I've had a really long day. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, but I really could use this connection. And then could we have sex tomorrow or on Saturday or whenever it is? I think it can be helpful, especially for the partner with higher desire, to let them know when you will connect sexually, even though today it's not going to happen, and then prioritizing that connection. And on the other hand, if you're like, yes, I am open to it, but this is some of the things I need first, then talking about it and letting them know what you need to be open. And so, like I said, for me, this is often conversations. If I'm feeling disconnected, I need to sit down or lay in bed and just look at my husband and talk for a while, share feelings, share fears, just snuggle and be close and connect. It can also look like, I'm actually feeling really disconnected and like I've been carrying a lot of the burden. And so this can look like him maybe taking on some more things with the kids or the house, and me getting a break because I've had a really hard day. And then some more of that talking connection before I'm ready to move into a sexual encounter. But when we use our words, it provides an opportunity for us to be more open. If you just, I feel like it's so funny to say, but just like get jumped, right? Like, hey, I'm ready for sex. I want to have sex with you. It can be hard to say what you're feeling and to let your partner know, I'm not open to that, because it can feel like rejection. It can feel like you don't care, especially if that spouse is actually initiating because they want to connect. It can feel like you don't want to connect with me when you say no. And I think a lot of this comes from the fact that we don't talk about it. Pretty much every movie you've seen, every book you've read, when couples are intimate, and this can be kissing or hugging, they just know what they want and they both want it at the same time, and they don't use their words. And so often in our relationships, we think it's normal that we don't have to use our words, that we're just going to know what our partner wants, or our partner's just going to be ready when we're ready, instead of recognizing that we're two different people, and one of us might be ready to be sexually intimate while the other one is completely not ready at all to be sexually intimate. And I think this is a funny example of this, but when my husband and I were dating and I first met his sister, so they had dinner, I met his sister, and he left my house, and his sister turns to him and is like, I think you should marry that girl. He had already been thinking about marrying me. Now, me, on the other hand, when he left dinner, the thought that came to my head was like, wow, he's been so nice. I would be open to getting to know him better and maybe dating him, right? Like, we are on completely opposite ends of the field. He's like, yeah, I've been thinking I might want to marry her. And I'm like, I'd be open to maybe dating him. And this can be the same in our sexual relationships. And that's why it's so important to use our words and to talk about it. Talk with your spouse and say, hey, I've realized that often when we initiate sex, we don't talk about it. And so the person who's not in the mood might feel used if they aren't feeling connected, or they might feel like they can't say no, even if they really are exhausted, because it's going to hurt the other person's feelings. But when we can ask in a way that leaves it open for them to say yes or no, and leaves it open for them to consider where they're at and what they need to move into the mood, it can be a beautiful way to then figure out together what type of connection is going to happen, what type of connection both of you need to move into the mood, or if one of you isn't open to that, what type of connection will happen instead. And then figure out together when you will connect sexually. Because even though sex is not a need, it is not a biological need, I do believe, and research shows, that a sexual relationship is important to couples' overall well-being in their relationship and relationship satisfaction. So even though it is not a biological need, you will not die from not having sex. It is a relational need. And so that's why I want to help you prioritize this part of your relationship. But like Carly blew my mind, let's have conversations about using our words to initiate sex instead of just doing it without words and not actually knowing where the other person is coming from and what they need to feel comfortable and open to move into a sexual encounter. So this week, my challenge for you is to talk about 4 things. The first one is to talk with your partner about how you both are usually initiating sex in your relationship, or how you're not initiating sex in your relationship, and how that comes off to both of you. What are you feeling in the way that sex is usually initiated or not initiated? The second thing is I want you to talk about how you would like sex to be initiated. As you talk about this, you might realize that there is one of the partners who is like, I would actually love to have it be super spontaneous and I don't need a lot of time to think about it because I'm the higher desire partner and I'm usually in the mood. If that's the case, then I want you to extend this conversation about how you might want to proceed if you were to initiate sex with him spontaneously, or with her, depending on which one, spontaneously, but you might be the lower desire partner, to then talk about, I might be able to initiate spontaneously, but even after initiating it, these are the type of things I might need to help me move into the mood. And you can talk about that, and you can talk about it in the moment when you initiate sex as well. The third thing I want you to talk about is how much time you may need as the lower desire partner, if that's you, to move into the mood. How much time do you need to consider if you're open to sex and if you feel like you could get into the mood today? I want you to talk about that. Would you like to know in the morning if your partner is going to want to be intimate that evening? Do you need an hour, 10 minutes? Talk about it to give each other time to think about and know how you would like to have sex initiated and the time you may need to move into the mood. You might not want to take all day to decide. Maybe you do, but talk about it so that your partner's not left hanging. Wow, I asked if they would be interested in sex this morning and I haven't heard anything. But if they know and you set those expectations beforehand, how you might proceed, I actually need to see how my day goes. Or yes, I can say I can move into the mood. So then the whole day you're kind of working on that. That is so helpful so that our partners aren't feeling hurt or abandoned. The last thing, the fourth thing, is to be really precise, like we just talked about, how you may want to proceed after you or he initiates. Talk about what each of you may need to move into the mood. Talk about, even if you initiate spontaneously, you're still going to need time for him to help you or for you to help him feel aroused, and it's not going to just be jumping into intercourse. Talk about those types of things so that you can make this a great part of your relationship and use your words to talk about it and to know where you're both coming from so that you're on the same page, so that one of you isn't feeling hurt, one of you isn't feeling abandoned or neglected, and the other one isn't feeling used and like they're not appreciated and they're just used to have sex with, even though they're not feeling connected. This is going to help alleviate some of the hurt that can come when we don't express how we're feeling and what we want. I'm excited to hear how these 4 things go for you this week. As always, thanks for talking love. Thank you to all of you who listen and join me on this journey, and to our Ladies Talking Love team who make the podcast possible. Thanks to our sound wizard, Kimberly Demers, and our miscellaneous task whiz, Jana Norman.